channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys 5 tips and tricks that I use to help me get back into reading, and then also the 5 books that I used to do these tips and tricks. For the first tip, I would recommend reading books based off of other medias that you like to consume. So this means if you like watching thriller or action or mystery like movies or TV shows, I would recommend that you go and you pick up that genre of a book and go from there. If you like watching a thriller movie, I feel like it would also translate to liking a thriller book slash novel. And a lot of thrillers and mysteries and action books always get turned into movies or shows. So even if you've already seen the movie or show, if you are okay with knowing what happens in the plot, I would just go and try and read that book that is based off of one of those shows if you have a favorite. Next, I would recommend finding a shorter standalone book or a shorter series or duology to start with. I wouldn't pick up a book that's larger than say 450 pages because it can be a little bit daunting when you can't get through a book that quickly. And I feel like for me, sometimes those smaller wins kind of help you get the motivation and they just help you feel proud of yourself. And then it's just kind of that satisfaction of oh, I did that. Okay, let's find something that's maybe a little bit longer. Or, oh yeah, 300 pages was easy. Let's find something that's 400 pages. So just those small wins. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if your book is 150 pages or 950 pages. As long as you get through it, I think that that's the most important thing, or that you enjoy it, because reading should be for enjoyment, not because you feel like you have to do it, obviously, unless you're in class or something. But reading should be a hobby, and hopefully that's why you are here, is because you like reading. So finding a shorter book that you like and finishing that will help you build that motivation, and then also just feeling accomplished after finishing said book. I would recommend, just because I know that that really helped me when I was starting to get back into reading. So, okay, and then next, I would recommend reading interconnected series. So this is a tip or trick that I don't really think many people have mentioned before, but interconnected series is essentially, it can be anywhere between obviously 2 to say 4, 5, 6, however many books. And they are books that are all combined into one series. So usually they take place in one location with similar plots, but they'll only focus on say 2 to 3 or 4 of the characters. Typically it's romance books, so it's just 2 main characters, but there's obviously other characters that you will see throughout the stories. So I would say starting with interconnected series, because then you kind of get to learn, 1, an author's writing style, and then 2, it just focuses on a lesser amount of characters, so it's usually easier to keep track of the plot and kind of what is happening in the story, which is why I would recommend it. And then next, I'm also going to suggest, if you have read in the past, reading a previous author that you have liked, if they have any either newer works or any works that you haven't read before, just because sometimes sticking with what you know is the way to get back into reading, and it is what truly is the best. And if you're somebody that's new to reading, I would recommend maybe just going and picking an author that writes in a genre that you know you will like, whether it's horror, thriller, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, whatever. I would just recommend going and finding one of the more popular authors, looking through what they've written, and then finding a book that works best for what you want to read as well. So again, I would say sticking to those genres of if you like thriller movies, etc., finding a thriller book and a thriller author that you would like to read. And then number 5, I'm going to say utilizing audiobooks. A lot of people are doing the 75 books where they try and read for 2 45-minute sessions a day, which I think is great. Not everybody has that time. So if you're somebody that has a really, really busy schedule, I would recommend utilizing audiobooks where you can. Or if you're somebody that likes to read, but maybe you're a little bit of a slower reading, immersifying the book that you're currently reading and listening to it on audio and also reading it. So an example of this for me is, I like to read a book, but sometimes if I'm cleaning or I'm busy, or if I'm working or studying, I'll like to listen to the audiobook. But if something is juicy is happening in the plot, or there's a lot of drama, I will want to physically stop the audiobook, stop listening to it, and open up the book and read it myself, just because that helps me understand what's going on. And sometimes I'm just no way that that's happening. So I would just recommend like utilizing your audiobooks and seeing maybe what works best for you. I'm gonna actually share the 5 books that helped me get back into reading, and one of these I don't want to necessarily recommend just because of how large it is, but it is the specific book that I use, so that's why I'm going to share it. This is the first book in the Crescent City trilogy. Well, it is a trilogy right now, and I don't really know if she's going to write another one. This is by Sarah J Maas. This is a almost 800-page book, which is why I wouldn't recommend it. When I got back into reading, this was actually a reread, and this book was actually like one of the first ones that has ever made me cry. So I'm usually not like a big like crier. Like I can be really connected to the book. Like I've read Throne of Glass, and Throne of Glass definitely has some spots where you're like specifically in Kingdom of Ash. Like if you know, like if you read Kingdom of Ash, you know. And then I've also read ACOTAR, all of them by her as well. And there's some moments also in ACOTAR that are like super dramatic, like makes you want to cry. But this was the first book that like I was like, oh my god, crying, because I remember I think I was reading it over like winter break one year from college, and I remember being in my like childhood bedroom like crying. So I started with this one, and she is a fairly like popular author. Crescent City and then Throne of Glass and ACOTAR are all very, very popular. ACOTAR I think is probably her most popular book. So if you are going to dive into Sarah J Maas, I would recommend you read ACOTAR, especially before you read Crescent City. And ACOTAR is adult, and then this is also adult, but Throne of Glass is like more YA, if that's something you'd like, and then all of them are fantasy. This is a modern fantasy, but you definitely need to read ACOTAR before you read Crescent City just to avoid like spoilers and such. Great book. I think I gave this one like, this book was probably the best one in the series for me, and I think I rated it like 4 stars. Okay, and then next I'm going to share with you guys 2 interconnected series that I have. So I have the Kings of Sin series by Anna Huang, and then this is the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. So both of these authors are known for writing romances and interconnected series specifically. So I will admit I read the Twisted series before I read the Kings of Sin series, but I like the Kings of Sin series more. So these are billionaire romances, but in this book, this is actually my favorite book in the Kings of Sin series, which is why I grabbed it. Dante and Vivian, their story is really great. So it's kind of enemies to lovers, and then it's also an arranged marriage. But I really like this because Vivian's that girl, and she shows it up. So Dante's obviously a pretty powerful man. These take place in New York City. He's a pretty powerful man. He's very wealthy, obviously, but like Vivian she doesn't like to be walked over, at least by Dante. And then like she kind of shows up and she's like, oh, you have money, well guess what, I do too, because she's also she's an event planner, and she's extremely successful in what she does as well. So I really like that, and I think Vivian is a great female main character. And then I did also really like Dante. This is more adult, so yeah, beware. I wouldn't recommend this to you if you're under 16, but this is I would say, good book and a great start to interconnected series. But Flawless is Rhett and Summer's story, and this is the first book in the series. But again, these are all cowboy romances, and these take place in like Chestnut Springs, which is a made-up town in Canada. And Rhett and like their family, they're ranchers, and then Summer's actually from the city, which I think she's from Calgary is what it is, if I remember right. I read these over the summer, so gotta remember some facts. This trope was he's a bull rider, and then she's like his like PR agent, so she's there to kind of quote unquote babysit him and make sure that he like behaves and like all that, and that he's not like saying like anything bad or whatever. So they very much like don't have like a working relationship, and then again, like this is kind of like an enemies to lovers. And then like they also like she works for her dad, Summer works for her dad, and then she's his like PR agent / babysitter, so it's like a bad look that they like fall in love. But a great story. I would recommend the Chestnut Spring series. Heartless is definitely probably my favorite, but this is just the first book, which is why I'm showing it. And then next I have 2 standalones. Technically, like one of these now technically has a sequel, but I kind of read it as a standalone, and I'm gonna recommend them to you. But I picked 2 just because these are also shorter books and really quick reads, and I picked 2 because one of these has some trauma in it, and it's very heavy. So if always do your research, like when you're picking up a book, and always read like the synopsis, because if that trauma triggers you, it can just be really heavy and then not a good read for you. I would recommend The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. So this book follows Eden, and she got essayed by her older brother's best friend winter break of her like freshman year of high school. And this book just follows her 4 years of her in high school and her healing journey. So like I said, lots of like trauma heavy, but I will say this book is probably fairly realistic based on like the coping mechanisms that Eden uses and just kind of like how she acts and like things like that, because she doesn't feel very heard by her family or anything, and nobody knows that she's been assaulted, and just extremely heavy with the trauma. A great story. And I think I read like half of this book in one day because it reads very easy. It's lots of like short chapters, and then just like it being broken up into the 4 parts of her freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school makes it very quick. And I have been meaning to pick up the second book in this. It's called The Way I Am Now, and I just haven't yet. But great story. But again, do your research before picking this one up. I think I did rate this one 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. And then the next book, this one's kind of a hidden gem, but I think I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and that is just Everything We Never Said by Sloane Harlow. So this is a standalone, and this is kind of a like mystery thriller / like YA. And this follows our main character, Ella. So Ella and her best friend, Haley, were in a car accident, and Haley ended up passing away. And Ella now has to navigate her senior year of high school alone without her best friend, and she kind of feels like Haley was the only friend that she had, even though she belonged in a larger group, because Haley was popular, super nice, a star athlete, like all of these things, and Ella just feels like she's not. So she's more quiet, she's more shy, and it's just her navigating her senior year of high school. And then obviously there's like a love interest, but also Ella cleans out Haley's room, and she ends up finding Haley's old diary, and she feels guilty about taking it, but Ella is like, well, I don't want to leave this with Haley's mom because she just, who knows, like, what would happen to it then. And so Ella ends up taking it and finding out, like, reading it, like, learning things about Haley that she didn't know before. So it's just kind of her and that, like, mystery, like, element to it. And yeah, I would recommend this book too, just because a lot of the plot twists that happened in like the last like 100 pages, I didn't expect to happen. Like, I genuinely was like, what? Like, and I'm usually somebody that like books can't catch me like too off guard. This book, I was like, oh my god, what's happening? Like, the plot twists were like written fairly well, and I did not expect them. Like, maybe other people kind of did, but usually I'm someone that has like fairly good intuition and can like expect what's gonna happen. But this book was one of the first ones that was like, oh my god, I didn't expect that to happen. So that's another reason why I recommend this, just because it was one of the first stories that did catch me off guard for probably the first time in a long time. So yeah. So happy reading in 2026. If you're somebody that's new to reading and trying to get back into it, hopefully any of these tips and tricks can help you. If you guys want to see any more like video recommendations or have any suggestions for me, let me know. If you guys need help picking books, also like feel free to like leave a comment. If you are somebody that has gotten back into reading, feel free to like let me know like what stories helped you, like just grabbed you and got you back into reading, because I have a growing TBR and I would love to read them. I'm trying to catch up on a lot of books that I haven't read in the last few years, so let me know maybe what stories helped you get back into reading as well. So thanks for watching.